Good morning. Yes, it's morning where I'm at and at the time of this recording. So I just naturally say good morning. Today is the day that the Lord has made. Let us be glad and rejoice in it. For the sun is shining. It is a cold morning, but through it all, we are thankful because we are alive. So in this broadcast, I just want to come to you about and be kind of raw and honest about things that are going on in my life. And as sorrowful as January has been and the beginning of February, um, we're in the winter months. We're in the winter months. It's may not be cold, but it's cooler. Things are dull. Things are gray. Sometimes the clouds hang low. There's fog. Do you feel like that? Do you feel that in your soul some days? Well, I just know that I have people in my life that this is a weepy, wet season. Things are happening in their lives that they never thought that they would ever be experiencing. Loss, loss of jobs, loss of relationship. The loss of relationship may be just temporary, but this is a testing time. Um, and then, we're in a new year. So keep I keep hearing, let go of the past, let go of the old wounds. But when people say that, I think we think it's all magical. And it's just like, boom, just don't think about it. But to be honest, I think God brings up layers of things, small situations, and we get a chance to examine it and decide how we're going to handle it. If we can truly let it go, can we truly forgive? Can we truly change through these things of life, present and past? So, I'm going to talk about a couple incidents that have happened. Most of them are not me personally. I will wait for my personal one because it is so insignificant in the realm of a couple of these other things that I'm going to talk about. So, just before the new year, just before between Thanksgiving and Christmas, someone in my life woke up in the middle of the night with horrible back pain, excruciating back pain. And she had to wake her husband, and he had to take her to the emergency room. She thought she was just having some problems with her cycle, or just making sure she didn't have something else going wrong, but she didn't think it was anything serious. But she just knew that she had pain and she had to take care of it. Well, she got through that test. They they saw some spots on her liver, and they go, "We think you need to go for more testing. We think you have cancer." That was the last thing she thought, that it would be fine because she's a healthy person. And even though she does have cancer, she is a healthy person. But they found these tumors that it's causing excruciating pain. And she's had to go through. So from there, fast forwarding to now she's had some surgery. She's looking to having a liver transplant to rectify these issues. How terrifying is that when, the word first living with the word cancer and then living with transplant strikes the fear of God in your heart. But this is how God has been showing up in this situation. There's people in her family who say, "How dare you, God? How dare you do this? We are a good family. She is a mother of young children. How dare you, God, do this?" And God, if you're really real and we're praying for healing, how come she's not healed? Why is she not healed? We're praying for this healing. Well, if you really go back and read the parables, and each time that God did a healing, it wasn't the healing of the ailment at first. These people had to do something in order for the healing to happen. They had to show him great faith, that they truly believed he was and is the Messiah. They pursued him with great action. They didn't just walk up and say, "Hey dude, I hear you perform miracles. Lay one on me." Because sometimes he ignored them. He would step away from them because he needed to see what kind of action they would take. Would they continue to pursue him? Some of them, the man the man on the mat who wanted to be put into the bubbling waters, he bellyached and he laid there for 30 years wallowing in self-pity. But when Jesus approached him, Jesus said, "Do you believe in me?" And the man saw he was the Messiah. He knew the man was of truth. And he confessed his belief. He took an action of faith. And God goes, "Confess of your sins, and I will set you free." And he did. And he picked up his mat and he walked out of those pools, a free man, free to lead his life. The woman of issue of blood, Jesus really took a huge, huge chance with her because you weren't supposed to even be near a woman who was on her time of the cycle, who oozed of blood. And, and she touched him. He should have gone into hiding. Go back and read the story. Read all of the accounts in all of the Gospels. And no, I'm not going to tell you where they are because I want you to learn how to find these things for yourself. This is not a spoon feeding message. This is just a message of life and these instances and how examples in the Bible can show of God's love, but it's not like a magician. So back to the story of the woman with blood. She was desperate. This woman had been bleeding for years. For years. So that meant she couldn't be with anybody. She was in total isolation, total shame of her condition. And if anybody came near her or touched her, saw the blood, they needed to go seclude themselves for 7 days. They were angry. They were mad because she disrupted their lives with her issue. Sound familiar with COVID? Now, I'm not saying that this person in my family needed to do this. But I'm talking about the faith message now, the message of healing. In order for this woman to get healing, she was just so desperate. And just put yourself in her situation. That's what I'm asking. Don't read it as this is just another story. Put yourself into the situation and just think about her faith going, if I just touch the garment of his robe, I will be healed. She was a woman of great faith. And she fought the crowds because where he was, it was so crowded. And she had to fight past. She 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 risked her life going in the crowd saying, I must reach the undergarment of my God, my Messiah. He will heal me. And she did. And Jesus said, who touched me? Because he felt his spirit release and go out into something else. Who touched me? Who touched me? And it wasn't, sometimes when we're in these situations and something happens, it's like, who did that? Who did that? He was not like that. He needed her to stand. This was another example of him showing who he was. And the Pharisees were watching, they were judging. He could have been hauled away, but he risked his reputation to acknowledge this woman. And there she was. She was bowed down on her knees. And she confessed, it was I. That was another test to come boldly before the Lord. No matter what situation you're in, no matter how dire it is, to come before the Lord, how ungodly you can be or how unclean you can be, you come before the Lord. And he asked her, he goes, he reached down, he touched her, risking his reputation, and he didn't care. He said, come, stand before me. He had her stand face to face. That made her on the same ground as him. And he says, you are healed, my daughter. Be of shame no more. Go and live your life in remembrance of me. He risked everything. These accounts you can easily find in Matthew 9. If you want to check my stories. And in Matthew, they're very short accounts, but in the other gospels, you will find longer accounts of these stories. And I do recommend to really see it is watch the show Chosen. Chosen depicts these stories oh so well to kind of really put a face and a realness to these other than just written words on the page. They really do bring it to life. But my thing is through all of this, these people's faith grew. They couldn't just pray and say, I have faith that God's going to heal me. I have faith that no, they had to do something. They had to take action. They had to take action and show their faith in him and act in obedience. And they were healed instantly. Not all of us are going to be healed instantly, but it's layers. But we have to take an action. And I will share more of my healing story in the end. Moving on, I have another family. I do want to come back and say that this family member that I was just talking about with the issue with the liver and the transplant, a lot of the family are believers, but there are some family members that are not. And there's been trials and tribulations through this journey. The fear is intense, but God is working on them. God is working on their hearts. And in this shaking, this life altering things, there has been other losses that I'm not free to talk about, but just let me know. There is great pressure on this family. But through it all, at different levels, there's shiftings, there's changings, there's mindset. There's going to be a great healing of mindset. There's going to be a great healing of belief because this family is coming along and in strength. Then I have another family member who also has a diagnosis of cancer. He is not a believer. And it is said in order for God to heal a person, they have to believe in him. It is said in the Bible, you have to be a believer. How do you pray for a person like that? Because God's really not going to hear our prayers for that. Once again, it's in the Bible. You can go check me on this. We can pray for them, but maybe we need to switch our prayers up a little bit. Maybe we need to pray, Lord, show up in their dreams. Lord, remove the scales from their eyes. Because he healed the blind men. He healed the blind man and the mute. Well, spiritually, a lot of people are blind and mute because they don't see Jesus and they don't speak of him. If they do, they're mocking. And he said, I will not be mocked. You need to go. In order to get what I have, you have to believe in me. And I will give you the desires of your heart. Well, of course, we desire for everybody in our family to be happy, but they have to go through things sometimes in order to come to the feet of Jesus. And we have to believe that he shed his blood, that he died. He shed his blood to cover our sins and rose again. Those are mandatory. But this person is not a believer, but through it, they've had to wait for answers, and it's not their their procedure is not as drastic as the other one, but still it has shaken their life. The waiting, the worry, but they're going to be okay. And then broken relationship. At the beginning of a year, somebody very dear to me, a very dear couple, they were engaged. They I don't know where they are now in the thing of in love, but they're in the process of separation because an incident happened. They were engaged and something really not horrific happened, but it was the last straw situation. And a lot of mental health is involved in this situation. And so at this time, they are separated from each other in order to hopefully heal and decide, do they belong together or not? I can't speak for one of the parties because I do not know anything going on in their lives. But the other party, I do know they are taking steps to better themselves. They doing things to work on their mental health, do things holistically to better their mental health, along with medication. But just taking time and going to their peaceful places in order to change their but great steps have been taken. But through this, as a very close person to one of the parties, I've had to learn how to let go. This is not my battle to fight for this person as much as I would like to. But God keeps telling me over and over and over, He's going, don't come into my arena. This is my job. Just stand back and watch. Love them and encourage them. But don't get in the thick of it. I'm in the thick of it. This is my yoke to carry, not yours. Do not pick up yokes that are not yours. This is my battle. Do not fight battles that are not your battles to fight. This is between us. Where he's at in his belief of God, I don't know. I don't know. I do know that he's saved. But with a mental illness, or where some of it could be mental illness, some of it is spiritual. And some dark, heavy spirits have been attached. And it's a battle. It's a battle for life. But this person, I have high hopes that in the end, he's going to see Jesus in the end. He's those spirits are defeated. Not going to be defeated. Those spirits are defeated because we do have the authority, and I do have strong intercessor prayer partners. And the battle is real. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, for my story. So through each one of these, I'm seeing what battles are mine to fight and which ones to let go. And sometimes the fight isn't actually physical, it is not verbal. And what I'm getting ready to share with you is it manifests in the physical, but it's really a spiritual battle. But I'm involved on an online group, and the person who leads the group also is a Christian. And this is a good example of not everybody is in the same place. Even Christians can carry spirits with them. Christians can carry heavy religious spirits with them. Christians, and I'm not saying that judgment is wrong, because there are times that this is a time of me judging, but it's judging the situation. It's judging what's happening spiritually. What is really going on underneath, where I feel like I have been undervalued, discounted. I get pushed to the side by this person often. My voice is stifled in this arena. So, anyway, many weeks go by and this person talks and 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 talks, talking about his things and he gives other people in the group the floor to go in depth with what they're going through and what their plans are. And I'm given minutes, sometimes seconds. And I allow it. And then I come off the call feeling very defeated. But the other day, there was things that are many times they're things that are in my wheelhouse, and he's telling them how they need to do it. And total disregard to me. And if I speak up, he goes, uh-huh, and then back to his voice. He doesn't give me any room to add or to give my point of view on this particular subject matter, on many subject matters. He's just so interested in his own voice. And everything is brilliant. Oh, I'm so smashingly brilliant. I'm and you need to read this book and you need to read that book and you need to watch this podcast and that, where I can feed them. I used to be one of those people that listened to broadcasts, read lots of articles, and did nothing. I made no advancement. In 2 years, I have made a lot of advancement. I have learned a lot of things. I've learned how to really do my job and other things that go along with it. And the people who know me know the value that I will bring to them. But I'm totally discounted by this person, and I'm hurt. And the other day I was so mad. I wanted to write him a note and tell him how disrespectful, how dishonoring, how he disregards the value that I bring. You treat me like a puppy dog or like a mistress that when needed, you have me sit there and test your systems with you and jump through your hoops, but don't really give any feedback. Just sit and do. But I will pull you out. I will use you in opportune times, but for my benefit, not really yours. It's all for my benefit so that I can be better and look at my systems and test, 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 test. I shared it with so I was very angry when I got off the call. I did not say anything, but I didn't give any gleaning um, feedback. Did not pay into his personal because I have I have told this man, "Oh, you have such a great thing. God is with you. Just keep." And that's where the blocker is. He lives a mixed life. He looks to the world for the answers, but God has him on a journey of bringing him to his knees to show faith. But I have fought these demons my whole life. I have warned against them because whenever I stood up and took shared something, there was always somebody there to push me down. And I'm always looking at the people. It's not the people, it's the spirits that don't want me to advance. And in this, it's definitely a spiritual battle. But during this spiritual battle, I get an opportunity to explore and I sit with my God. I sit with my Jesus, and the Holy Spirit comes and comforts me and tells me, my child, this is not but a test, and you have the authority over those spirits, the spirits of perfectionism, the spirit of fear, of anxiety that is coming off of that person because I might outdo them. He knows I have the knowledge. He knows I have the knowledge of God. He knows I have the knowledge of the particular thing that he pushes me out of. But God says the time has come to an end. Show up because there's things that I do learn and I do get to talk my little nuggets, but they're little bombs that I get to lob into that territory. Just showing up and being there is an act of warfare on my part, because I could just give up and let it go. But my little pearls of wisdom is picked up by the other person on the call. There's another person who sits in these calls with us. And I know that she's picking up those pearls of little wisdom nuggets that God gives me. And for me to say Weezy Wisdom and pearls of wisdom is hard for me, but God has given me wisdom. I am wise. And through this, He gives me knowledge. And when this person talks about, well, you should listen to this podcast, listen to this person, read their books, this book. My God, if I did everything that he said, I would never have time to do the work that I need to do. And I would be so confused because they're conflicting messages. I choose God. And in this journey, I laid down all of the worldly experts, and I have followed God. And you know what? I have a whole business plan. He has laid out a whole business plan. I've been able to talk it to people. It makes sense to people, and they're going, yes. Even the person in the group a couple weeks ago go, I think this is the year you're going to explode. And I go, yes, I am. But Satan wants me out of that group. I'm going to continue to let this man do whatever. I used to send him words of encouragement. I used to send him words of the Lord. But I think it fell on deaf ears. He didn't look at it. He shows and he tells each week of how he is working mentally, what he's going through. So he is in a process. But once again, it's not my war. He chose to disregard. I gave him good words. I've given him testimonial after testimonial. But because I'm not as important to the people he deems important, they're never shared. They're never picked up. Giving him opportunity to come and talk on my platform. But you know what? God goes, no, you are not going to cast your pearls before the swine, because he shows you total disregard. And my child, I don't let people treat my children like that. So you look at it as rejection, but it's truly my protection. So sometimes the rejection is protection. Just keep believing and keep going, for God is with you through it all. He is working in every situation. We are called to have hope. We are called to have faith. And when we hear those little whispers of movements that we are to take or acts that we're supposed to do, we will know it's his voice, for we are his sheep. His sheep know his voice. Be strong, be faithful, be trusting, and step out and do it. And the other thing I'm going to say is tiny step. It's tiny steps. You will hear this through a lot of my things. The Israelites had to take a tiny step. They had to dip their toe into the Red Sea in order for it to part. Joshua had to dip his toe into the Jordan River when he went to take his promised land in order for the waters of the Jordan to part. We only think of the Red Sea parting, but if you go back and really study the Old Testament, God parted the waters several times. Several times. And if he did it for them, he'll do it for you, because God is not a respecter of persons. He has no favorites. Go. Read chapters upon chapters in Abraham and the Israelites, Moses. They stepped out in faith. Then they would stumble, but God still showed up. Go read the good news. Go read the good word and learn. Grow in wisdom, grow in knowledge for yourself, because what you glean, no one can ever take away from you. And your God, they can never take your God away from you. They may come laws, but you know what? That relationship is between you and him, and we are connected like with an umbilical cord. We are connected through the vine. He's grafted us in. We may not have a good life here. We may not have a good blood relationship with our family, but we are part of God's family, and he adopted us into his, and he has great love for us. So allow him to love you, and stop listening to the negative voices in the head. And each time they come, go, no, that's a lie. God says, find those nuggets in the Bible to confess. God says, God shed his blood for me. God's blood is covering me. He is my fortress. He says he makes promises that no matter what, he will protect me. It is his battle. He will take up our yokes and he will carry the loads, but we have to allow it. So that's your Weezy Wisdom for this message. I don't know who I'm speaking to. I'm not even broadcasting this out, but whoever needs to find it, you will come, you will listen, and hopefully your heart, your mind, and your soul finds rest and healing in it.